So we are looking at time series data analysis. My name is Big Bright and I'm starting this video and I'm going to break it into chunks. So we're going to be looking at time series data analysis. Today I want to focus on understanding how time series data works. So once I am sharing my entire screen, I could just pull up my share. So I am on my RStudio now. So if you check critically, I have some what are the time series data here, or time series data and how it is being formulated. So now this is how I want us to get these videos. I want to do this within 15 minutes. So when we are talking about time series, we are basically talking about a data that increases or decreases with time, or a data that has been picked with timestamp on it. So you are picking the data based on time. You can be picking the data on hourly basis, on minute basis, or within a week, within a day, or within a year, within a month, or every quarter of the year, or whatsoever. So I mean, time series is not just basically about what happened within a year. It actually spans across every aspect of the time. But the basic thing I want us to know today is that there are some intricacies with respect to time series. One, we need to know how to represent the data, whether it is quarterly, it is annually, it is monthly, it is on hour basis, or it is on whatever. If we are able to get that right, then we are good to go. Now I want you to pay attention to this particular point. In time series, the function that is used is called the time series itself. So you can have something like TS, which means that's the time series. That's the function. And because it is a function, if you always remember your elective maths, for instance, if you want to say f of x, so we say f here, and then we put this, and then we put x there. That's f of x. So f is a function of, what is it? X is a function of, or f is a function of x in that particular order. So when we are talking of function, it's not any big deal. So we have t here, which is also a function. So if it is a function, I'll have to put something like this. So in time series, when you put a function, the first thing that comes is always the vector or the data. So in this case, let's just put it a vector. Now the next thing that comes, very important, is when is the data starting? When is the data starting? What is it? The start date. When did you start collecting the data? Remember I just said time series data is based on timestamp that is being put on a data that somebody has collected. I've just given the examples. So when did you start? Obviously you started in a year, you started in a month. It can also be that you started in in a specific day or whatsoever. But for a start, let's look at it this way. So we always say we have the stats, and you can see the stats sign comes, because one is at the beginning of your line of your code. I don't know that we are talking about time series data. So you have your stats, and then the start mostly. If you are dealing with years, you can just put the year there. Let's say I'm dealing with 2022. I can just put it there. But if I am dealing with the year and month, then in that case, I need to use a vector sign again. So I'll use C, and then I'll put it this way and say that I am starting at, let's say, 2014 or 2012, in which particular month? Let's say I am starting in January. So I put 1 there. That's how it is. And then the next thing is I need to also indicate my end date. So I'm going to come out of this and see. So you can see end comes, and then I can also indicate my end date. And so I also want to say that I'll use the C again and then put this into bracket, because I'm using the vector, the combined function. That's why I'm using C. So when am I ending? Let's say I want to end in 2022. So I'll say 2022, and which particular month I want to end? 2022, let's say December. That's where I want to end. And so the next most important thing is frequency. So the frequency tells us that's what is going to specify whether the data you are collecting is on hourly basis, is on monthly basis, is annual, or is weekly, or is quarterly. So now I will now have to indicate my frequency, and so you see that my frequency comes. Now to be able to explain this frequency, look at what I have written on top there. If I put the frequency at 12, it means that I am dealing with months. You see, I am dealing with, this means the data was collected on monthly basis. If I put the 12, it means I am collecting the data on monthly basis, or the data was collected every month. Now, if I put around that particular place 4, it means that the data was collected on quarterly basis. Every 3 months, we pick the data. Okay? If I put around that place 24, it means the data was collected on daily basis. Every day, every 24 hours, we pick the data. And that's what that means. If I put around that particular place, let's say 6, it means that the data was collected every 10 minutes of an hour. So it means that the data was collected, the entire data was collected within an hour. But within that particular hour, we collected the data every 10 minutes. All right? I'm going to tell you where this kind of data collection is much more applicable. So, apart from that, what about if I wanted to collect the data every 10 minutes of the day? There's a difference between 10 minutes of an hour and then 10 minutes of the day. If I put 6, it means I'm collecting the data every 10 minutes of just 1 hour. So it means my data from beginning to the end lasts within an hour, and that's all that I want to measure. But what about if I have collected the data within a day and then I took the data 10 minutes interval? So in that case, I need to put 24. 24 means in a day, and then I'm multiplying it by 6. It means I was collecting the data every 10 minutes of the day. Right? Now, what about if I had collected the data on weekly basis? I put 7. You see, it means that the data was collected on weekly basis. So I just want us to understand this basic way. It's very confusing if you do not understand this particular thing. And so I'm going to copy this. I'm just going to highlight this, copy it, and replicate it as many times, and then to be able to make the explanation quite clearer. So now if I'm going to pull this one down, and then I can leave more space on top here. And then I'm going to come here and paste this, come there and paste this, come here and and paste this, and then I'm going to paste that one too, paste something here. Now let's assume that all I want us to understand for today is here I am talking about a week. All right, so I'm just going to put hashtag here and say I'm talking about weekly. The data was collected on weekly basis. Now, if I come here and I put 12, it means the data was collected on monthly basis. Please, if you are following, if you are watching, if you don't understand anything, please just put it in the comment box. And so here, if I decide to put this place for the frequency, the data was collected on, let's say, quarterly. It means every 3 months. So the data was collected on quarterly basis. If I decide to put here, let's say 6, the data was collected every 10 minutes of an hour. So I'm just going to put there every 10 minutes. Every 10 minutes per hour. And here, if I put 24, if I put that place 24, it means the data was collected daily. And so I'm going to put that place daily. It means, oh, I don't know, I put 14. It's actually 24. If I put here 24 by 6, it means the data was collected every 10 minutes of a day. So that's going to give me every 10 minutes 10 minutes per day. Get the difference here. All right. So this is basically how time series data is. We need to understand this very, very carefully. The frequency. These are not all the frequencies. I am unable to exhaust all of them, but these are the most basic ones, the ones that we use much often. So if you understand how to be able to partition your data this way, then you are good to go. So it means that from here, if I want to read the whole of line 15, it means that I am collecting, this is a time series data which started on 2012 in January and ended in 2022 in December on weekly basis. So it means the data was collected on weekly basis. So the vector here is the actual data. So I could actually create the vector here. I could just put the same thing. Let me come down this way, and I'll just put here the vector. So the vector is actually the data. That's the data that we are talking about. So I have my vector, and so I'm just going to create anything, and so I can just do something like run if. So the run if function is going to give me, let's say I am creating a data point of, let's say 300, and then I want a minimum. The minimum value should be like 5, and then the maximum value should be equal to let's say let's say 10. So I am collecting a data, and the data points are 300 with a minimum of 5 and then a maximum of, let's say, let me put it 50. So I can put it 500. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. So if I run this vector is there. So now when I come here, it means that the vector here, there's now a data that has been assigned to it. So now if I run this particular line, you're going to see that the data is going to be partitioned on weekly basis. It means we picked some data, 300 data units. Okay, data units and then we're picking each of them every 7 days. Every 7 days we pick one. Every 7 days we pick one. And we started picking the data from 2012 in January, and we ended picking the data in 2022 in December. So now we can run it and see how the data will look like. And so if I fold up, this is how the data will look like. This is on weekly basis. So you can see that it means that from 2012 up to let's say 2022, you can check the number of, we are picking every week. So how many weeks? You can see 82 that we had picked. And so these are the data points that we had picked already. We can actually reduce these decimals. It doesn't really matter. If you've been following my tutorials, I've done something about this. Today, I just want us to get the understanding of what I have done here. Now, this is the first part of it. In this one, the data is closed. In time series data, when you have a limit from one end to the other, that's a closed data collection. There are instances you leave the data opened. You only give the start date and then you forget the end. So what is going to happen is that the frequency will determine when the data will end. So if I did not bring this one, then it could have ended at any date at all that it wanted. And so sometimes, mostly you will see only the start, you don't see the end. But in a nutshell, this is how we do time series data collection. I mean, I want us to pay attention to the frequency. That's where the most important thing is. So now to go ahead and answer the question I gave last night. I was saying that there was a gentleman who runs a company, and that particular company, he spends a particular amount, an average. All right, an average amount, and then let's say because of that average amount, what he was spending on like expenditure, having a revenue, and then some profit. And so we wanted to simulate a time series data, and use it to do any kind of analysis that we wanted to do. All that we wanted to do was to know that he has been running the company for 5 years now. How many weeks are in the 5 year? Just multiply 52 times 5, and that's going to give us 57. So they were 57. It means that the data that we were dealing with, and I said that the guy was spending on weekly. Weekly means we're supposed to put the frequency at this. So all that we needed is to create the data by giving the minimum and the maximum value, or by giving the average value. So how do we do that? So we just come here and create a vector, and this should be our vector. Let's say our vector here, and then come here, and then we are going to create what is it? What is data? Any random sample kind of. So I'm going to use the run if function again, and then I come here. So it means that our data points are supposed to be, he was spending every week, and we just realized that there are about 57 weeks so far. Oh, okay. Oh, no, not 57. I think I made it's supposed to be 52 times 5, not 52 plus 5. 52 times 5, and that will be 310. It means that the data points we are looking for is 310. All right, so that's our run if function there. So we are looking for 310, and then he was spending on average of how much? On average, he was spending I can't remember, but let's say that he was spending, let's say 5,000 Ghana cedis. You see, and then the maximum is or that was the average, 5,000. So we can just give some range of values, which average will give us 5,000. Okay, so for instance, if I have if I have a minimum of let's say we know how to calculate average. So if I take the maximum away, if I take the minimum and then the maximum, the difference, I can get what will be in the middle. So let's say I have a minimum of, let's say 2,000 and a maximum of like 7,000. So I'm picking a data point of, let's say I have 2,000 here and then the maximum of 7,000. The average will be what? 5,000. All right. And so that was all that I wanted to do. So if I run this, you see that that particular vector has been created. So now that I have the data, which is here, I can just run it over here, and you can see that this is all that he has spent in all the how many weeks, the number of weeks that he has run the company for 5 years. You see, he has run the company for 310 weeks, and then he has spent an average of 5,000. Okay, and then so an average of 5,000, we just looked at the minimum of 2,000 and the maximum of 7,000. I could just add some zeros here. In mathematics, if you reduce 2 zeros from both sides, you have lost nothing. So if we do this, all right, so I could have actually do a round off here. I'm going to round the data off so that avoid this. This is round if. So I'm going to say round, and then so I'm rounding it off to nothing. That way, okay, so that way we're not going to have decimals. So we are going to print the data in the first place. So the data is printed. No, in this case, you see that you don't have any decimal numbers. So it means that there were instances he spent like 3,000 Ghana cedis. There were instances he spent up to 5,000, almost 6,000, and then sometimes he spent 6,900, and then in that order for all the 310 weeks running the companies for how many, So this was for, let's say, expenditure. We can do the same for revenue, and we can do the same for, let's say, profit. And after that, we can use matrix to be able to combine all of them to have our time series, and then we begin to examine all of them as individual databases. I already have an example down here that I'm going to show you. So, but I just wanted to show you how to answer that question. The question was, so now that we have created the data, the next thing to do is to now do the time series. The time series, if you understand, it means that we are talking about this first line here. So the first line we have here, that's weekly, on weekly basis. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that particular line, come here, and then put it here. So in place of this vector, I am going to change that particular vector into VT. So that's the data set for the guy that I'm talking about. But in that case, we didn't give an indication of from which year he started. I said for the last 5 years. The last 5 years were in 2023. So it means that he would have started 2023, he would have started in 2018, right? 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. Okay, 2019. Let's say 2019 that he started. Let me put it 2018. So I'm going to put here, he started in 2018. And then in 2018, which month? So we are in the 3rd month now. So he actually started in 2018 in September. That's what will give us exactly 5 months. So we'll put here 9. And then this place, and then up to 2023 March. 2023 March. And then I'll put here 0. And then I'll put here 3. So that's 5 years. And the frequency is that he was working on every week. So we give it 7 days. So now when we run this, our time series data is ready. So you can see that we have created our time series data, which is here. And then start at this. What is it? 2018 September, and then up to this, and then we have our time series. And then we have our vector, which is also here. And then we are good to go. So the frequency is 7. And the end date is this. So you see that it gives us all that we needed to have, what to have known about this particular, the question that I asked yesterday. And that's basically what I wanted you to do. So we could do this for, 1 month. We could, we could do this for the expenses, do this for revenue, and do this for the profit. And then we are now good to have, we could have packed this into one of the data, and then we could have said this one was the expenses. So I will just put the expenses, and then that variable is there. So if you run like this, the variable is there. So next time we just print the expenses variable, and then it is there. So what is it? We can see the expenses around here, and then we can see the data around here. The time series, time has now been allotted to it. It's now a time series data. If you want to know, if you come and do a class and then you put the expenses, you will see that it will tell you that it's a time series data. All right, so you can see TS here. It means it's a time series data. So that's basically how time series data is being understood. In a nutshell, when you pick your data, it can be any type of data. Time series data is very important. It is used for trend analysis. It's used for to look at how drug is performing. For instance, you want to look at, if you give the drug to patients, you want to look at the patient's reaction. So you keep recording the patient reacting every maybe hour, every 2 days, or depending. So when you finish, become a time series. Those in agric, for instance, you want to look at the effect of a treatment on maybe either some new breeds or some feeds that you want to check whether the feed has some weight gain or whatsoever. You are picking the data, the weight of the animals interval maybe every week whilst giving them the feed, and then you are checking their weight changes or weight gain or weight loss. So time series data in stock market, that's what is used all the time. The CCTV cameras we see all the time is time series data because they pick images and information on timely basis, and then we can actually use that to be able to predict what is likely to happen. And so the time series data is very important. It is very important in trend analysis and to be able to understand how something is effective over time. And then you can check it on quarterly, monthly, yearly, every 10 minutes, every day, or whatsoever. So I will leave it here. There's a whole lot. The next one I'll be doing, I will try my possible best and let you understand. I've already simulated some data which is here. I will try my possible best and then let you understand how to be able to analyze time series data. Now, for now, I just wanted you to have information on how to create or how to allot your time series. This is also very important because it's not all the time that you pick the data from people who understand time series. You would have noted that they have picked the data, but they have not actually allotted time to it. So it's left onto you to allot the time appropriately by asking them the relevant questions. For instance, you go to a farmer and you ask the farmer how many times he feeds his poultry in a day, and he tells you he feeds them like 4 times, like 3 times a day, and what kind of feed. You want to examine the feed. The farmer doesn't. So how long, when did you start? The farmer will say, okay, I started let's say I started feeding them in December, let's say December 10th, and I've been feeding them up to now. So what is it now? It is left onto you to know that from that time up to now, he was feeding them 3 times a day. So you have to now pick the data, then allot the time accordingly, and then be able to do your calculation and make an informed. That is why I decided to let us understand how to simulate the data using these frequencies to be able to get the right data, and then the analysis is what is nothing. Thank you, and I hope you've learned something small. I'll see you. Bye bye.